2 weeks ago, we started this series by talking about New Year's resolutions. Did you know that after 2 weeks, most people have already given up their New Year's resolutions? By the end of January, fewer than 25% of people are still committed to their goals. And that's because achieving our goals is hard work. Even when we make detailed plans and have the best intentions, it takes strength, commitment, and perseverance to follow through. Now listen, whatever goals you have right now, I've got some good news and some bad news. The bad news is, if you haven't already, you are going to experience opposition, frustration, and a lack of motivation on your way to achieving your goals. The good news is there's hopes when your goal feels too hard to handle on your own. Listen, when things get difficult and you feel weak or discouraged, how do you keep pursuing your goals and finish strong? Let's see what the story of Nehemiah has to show us. But first, a little recap. Long ago, the city of Jerusalem was destroyed by an enemy army. But God promised the Jewish people that they would one day return to Jerusalem. The Jewish people slowly began rebuilding Jerusalem. And although people were living in Jerusalem, Nehemiah learned that the walls, well, they were falling down. Nehemiah got the idea that he wanted to repair the walls in order to honor God and protect his people. For months, Nehemiah prayed, planned, and prepared. So Nehemiah asked the king to let him repair the walls. The king said yes, and so Nehemiah recruited a team of people to help. But not everybody was so excited about this idea. Once he arrived in Jerusalem, Nehemiah got right to work. He convinced tons of people living in Jerusalem to work together and repair the city walls. And for the most part, it was a team effort, but there were definitely naysayers. Let's look at two of them in Nehemiah chapter 4, verses 1 to 3. When Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the walls, he became angry and was greatly incensed. He ridiculed the Jews, and in the presence of the associates and the army of Samaria, he said, "What are those feeble Jews doing? Will they restore their walls? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they finish in a day? Can they bring the stones back to life from those heaps of rubble, burned as they are?" Tobiah the Amorite said, who was on his side, said, "What are they even building? Even a fox climbing up it would break down their walls of stones." Let's talk about bullies. These guys called them weak. They mocked the quality of their work. They mocked their pain. They mocked their beliefs. They tried to crush their hope. And even though Nehemiah and his team were being obedient to God, they still had to deal with haters. But despite those haters, Nehemiah didn't get distracted. He didn't fight with these guys. He didn't add to their drama. He didn't even respond. Nehemiah took it to God, and he asked God to hear his prayers and make it right. And he wasn't afraid to be honest with God about what he was feeling. He wanted those guys to be punished. But Nehemiah kept going. He and his team kept building no matter what those guys had to say. They rebuilt the wall to half of the original height, and everyone poured their hearts into it. I wish I could tell you Nehemiah's opposition ended there, but it didn't. He faced even more obstacles as the time went on, both from his enemies and from the Jewish people. At one point, Nehemiah received a series of terrifying letters and death threats. These men did not want Nehemiah to finish this wall, but watch how Nehemiah reacts. See, in Nehemiah chapter 9, verse 6, Nehemiah says, "They were all trying to frighten us, thinking their hands will get too weak for the work and it will not be completed. But I prayed, 'Now strengthen my hands.'" Strengthen my hands, Nehemiah prayed. He could have asked God for anything, but he simply asked for the strength to finish his work. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7 tells us, "For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline." Listen, we all know what it's like to face obstacles. And this is never more true than when we're chasing after those God-sized goals. Although God never promises the process will be easy, here's what we are promised. We do not need to be afraid. God's Spirit will be with us. God will give us strength. Along with strength, Paul mentioned love and self-discipline too. When God gives us God-sized goals, the challenges and oppositions we face can be a gift. The resistance helps us strengthen our faith muscles, grow in love, and develop grit. Just like Nehemiah planned to experience opposition, we should expect to face difficulties when we're pursuing God-sized goals. But here's the good news I promised earlier. No matter what the world throws at us, God gives us the strength to pursue God-sized goals. Listen to me. At some point, we're going to face opposition that threatens us from achieving our goals. And opposition can feel overwhelming, especially if you're alone. But when you're following Jesus and chasing a God-sized goal, you are never alone. God is with you. God gives you strength, and God will even carry you when you can't keep going on your own.